You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. So last but not least is South Africa. And we're going to talk about them and talk about their squad and preview their chances of winning this World Test Championship final against Australia. So first of all, the squad that they've selected is as follows: Bavuma, Bedingham, Bosch, Desori, Janssen, Maharaj, Markram, Mulder, Mulfin Sami, pardon my pronunciation there, Ngidi, Patterson, Rabada, Rickleton, Stubbs, and Verene. And that's South Africa's squad that they've selected for this World Test Championship final. As we mentioned earlier, Jehan, they've done pretty well over the last 2 years in terms of the squad and the group of players they've selected. They're on a 7-test winning streak entering this final. And that's good going into the final for them in terms of that momentum. Many people said they shouldn't be here in the final after what they did in New Zealand when they sent their developmental squad, obviously when it clashed with the SAT 20 at the time. But all of that is in the past. And since then, they've done really well. They've been consistent. They finished on top of the table in terms of the World Test Championships points table. A lot of people said they didn't play Australia or England in the cycle, but they played against India and they managed a 1-0 draw there. But despite that, they were able to be consistent and win the games that they needed to in the series, and that's why they're here in the final. Also some big talking points. Obviously, Kahisa Rabada, he was suspended last month recently for taking illegal substances during the SAT 20 in January. He was suspended and he's cleared to play the final at Lord's against Australia. So that's a big talking point going into the final. Some injury concerns with Bavuma with his elbow and Bedingham with his toe, but they've been selected, so it looks like they'll be okay to play if selected. So those are pretty much the talking points going into this final for South Africa. Most of the squad that they've selected haven't played a lot of Test cricket against Australia. There's been a few players that have played Test cricket against Australia, have that experience of playing Test cricket against Australia. The likes of Bavuma, Verene, Maharaj, Janssen, Ngidi, Rabada. They've played a lot of Test cricket against Australia. They played in the last series in 2022-23 in Australia, those players. But outside of that, not many of the other players have played against Australia before in Test cricket. So that's something that will go against South Africa. Also, not a lot of experience at Lord's either. There's only been a few players that have played at Lord's for South Africa in Test cricket. So the Bavuma, Markram, Verene, they've played at Lord's. Rabada, Maharaj, Ngidi, and Janssen have played a Test match or 2 at Lord's as well. So not a lot of experience in terms of experience at Lord's for South Africa. So that will also go against them as well. Compare that to Australia, as we've talked about before, have that experience of playing at the home of cricket. You would think Bavuma, Markram will be the key with the batting side of things for South Africa. Rabada, Janssen, and Maharaj will be the key as well for South Africa with the ball. And, outside of that, the other batters and bowlers will have to try and pick up the slack. And we've seen that, South Africa go into this final as underdogs, but you never know. As we've seen from South Africa in the past, they are capable if they can get it right on the day. If they can pull things together, they are definitely a chance of causing an upset. And no doubt Australia are the favourites to win. But South Africa, they've performed well over the last 2 years in this cycle, but they will need to play at their best if they are to beat Australia at Lord's in this final. So So, Jehan, your thoughts on South Africa and their squad and their chances? Where do you see South Africa in terms of their selection with their squad? And, do you think they're a chance of potentially causing an upset? So, your thoughts on those matters there, Jehan?
Yeah, look, I have to admit I'm not too familiar with a lot of the names on this squad. Just looking at it, to me, the danger players would be Rabada with the ball, Janssen if he can get the ball to swing, might be dangerous. Carl Verena, he scored a fair few runs on the last tour in Australia, so he's a good wicketkeeper batsman. Tristan Stubbs, I know he's a really talented player, but I'm not sure if he's really quite established himself at the moment. Maharaj, I've never really rated him that highly, but I think Australia, they just need to milk his bowling, make sure they're not losing wickets to him, take him for 3-4 runs and over if they can. And then I think the real dangers from the fast bowling side of things are going to be Rabada, Janssen, Ngidi maybe. Markram with the bat. I noticed that the leading run scorer in the cycle was David Bedingham, who I don't think I've actually seen him play before. So I suppose he must be a pretty good player if he dominated was the leading run scorer. And then some of the other players, I think Ryan Rickleton is going to be a good. I'm pretty sure he's a good middle order batsman. Tony DeZorsey, an opener, I think, from memory. Sanuran Muthusamy, is he a spinner?
Yes, apparently he's an all-rounder, batting all-rounder on ESPN Cricket Info. That's what they put him under in terms of his playing role.
Yeah.
But he's played Test cricket before, back in 2019. He's only played the 4 Tests. Highest score of 68, not out, averaging 43. With the ball, he's taken 7 wickets, best for 4 for 45 in his career thus far. So he has played some Test cricket before, but as you said, Jehan, to be fair, I haven't heard a lot of him before, but he has been around for the last few years. That's for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a reasonable squad looking at it. Mulder, I think Mulder's a fast bowler from memory. Haven't heard of.
Yes, he can also bat as well, just to chip in there as well. He's got a highest score of 105 not out in Test cricket. He's played Test cricket since 2019. With the ball, has taken 30 wickets at 25. Best of 4 for 32. So one of those bowlers who can bat as well.
So look, I think South Africa are going to be the underdogs here. I'm hoping it will be competitive. There's a small chance that maybe a complete blowout and Australia just destroy them, but remains to be seen, really. But I'm hoping that it will be a competitive Test match.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully that is the case with South Africa in terms of their performance in this World Test Championship final. But as I mentioned before, not a lot of experience against Australian Test cricket for many of these players. Obviously, the names that come to mind that do, obviously, Bavuma, Janssen, Maharaj, Markram, Rabada, Verene, Ngidi have played against Australia before, but whereas the other players haven't. So that will be a challenge for them, especially for the batting group, not facing back Cummins and Stark and Hazelwood and Lyon and Bolden and co. And definitely you would think Bavuma, obviously Markram to stand up with the bat. If Janssen can get it right, Rabada, if he can, find his pace. Maharaj, he's got to be key for them as well in terms of the spin department. So if they can get it together with the bat and the ball, they they can definitely cause some challenges for Australia, but it depends whether or not the other players who are less experienced in Test cricket, can they put that together in this final? And really, this is the big test that we'll face in 2 years, really. This is the biggest test against Australia. So have they learnt the lessons from the past when they played Australia in 2022-23? That series was pretty dominant from Australia, really. They won 2-0. They won the first test by 6 wickets and on that green wicket at the Gabba where it was chaos. And that test match ended in 2 days, from memory. But then in the second test in Melbourne, Australia won by an innings and 182 runs. And obviously the last test in Sydney was a draw. So, and players to play in that series for South Africa were Bavuma, Vreni, Maharaj, Janssen, Ngidi, and Rabada. So it just shows you that those players will be key in terms of that experience against Australia, but also able to contribute to South Africa's chances of winning this final. And no doubt they are the underdogs, but as I always say, Jehan, you can't underestimate anyone. And you never know in Test cricket. It's a funny game. You never know. So if they can be competitive for at least, don't try and overtake Australia. If you can try and level with Australia and then take your chances and key opportunities, then you have a chance. At least give yourself a chance with the bat and with the ball. If they can do that, then they've got a chance of potentially winning this game. But no doubt it is their biggest test of this cycle thus far. So any other thoughts to add on to that, Jehan?
No, not really. I think it will be. Well, I'm hoping it will be a fairly competitive test match. I reckon where South Africa may be lacking a little bit is in their batting. I think they've got a good fast bowling lineup. So I think at the end of the day, it may all just come down to which team bats better.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's got to be the key, that's for sure, in terms of South Africa, in terms of their batting units standing up. And as I mentioned before, Bavuma and probably Markram will probably have to do the heavy lifting and get some other support from the other batters there in terms of that batting support. And their bowling, if they can get it right, Janssen, Rabada, Maharaj can definitely take wickets on their day. So it is definitely going to be crucial for South Africa that the batting and the bowling clicks. But to finish up about South Africa, it's they deserve to be here, obviously, at the end of the day, but definitely going to be their biggest test of this cycle, whether or not they can match it with Australia. Definitely the underdogs, but we know with South Africa they are fighters and they're capable of, causing an upset or two. But when it comes to world tournaments, Jehan, as we know over the years with South Africa, they tend to have a tendency to choke. And that tag always comes at this time of year when they're in tournament finals, South Africa. So maybe a bit different in the test format compared to one day or T20 cricket. But it's a tournament final, so that tag will be tossed around. But they just got to back themselves, and if they can get it together with bat and ball, you never know. Give themselves a chance over the 5 days, you never know. Funny things can happen. Or if we do have weather affected, in this final, then at least they know that if we don't get a result, then the trophy will be shared. So, try not to think that, but try and look to win the game first and foremost and see what happens there. So that's pretty much South Africa in terms of their squad and their chances and what they're going to do in this World Test Championship final. So let's wait and see what South Africa can do come June the 11th in this final against Australia. Hi everyone, hope you enjoyed hearing Jehan and I discuss South Africa's chances in the ICC World Test Championship Final for 2025. Let us know your thoughts on how South Africa will go in this ICC World Test Championship Final for 2025 in the comments. We would love to hear what you have to say.